This is the 104.1 River West Radio with Doug Cornfield, Dave Clark, Dave Geis, and we'll have a special guest today as well. Welcome, and it's great to be back after 1 week. We look forward to the show. Very good. Let me see here. We've got Dave. How are you doing today? I'm going to pull you in here. And they're all looking good. There's Dave and Dave. We got to get Dave over.
Dave and Dave. Hi, guys. Another Thursday night at the rodeo.
The clown rodeo.
Yeah, exactly.
So how's Wisconsin? I hear it's a little bit chilly there, Dave.
It's a bit chilly, right, man? We've been with the wind around 25, 30 below, around there. But, air temps have been getting better. It's around 8.
So do we basically bow down to Dave Clark for predicting the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I tell you.
I got a dozen donuts coming, man.
Yeah, that's right.
A dozen donuts, and I don't know what I don't even know what happened. I was down in Tampa and watching the game, and it was just crazy to see a 43-year-old man act like he was 23.
Yeah, it was a disappointing game. I mean, regardless of
you're right, Dave. Really, I mean, Brady did what he had to do. He exploited the weaknesses, and
he did.
It wasn't an artistically tremendous game.
No, and obviously with Kansas City's injuries and everything like that, they weren't at full strength, but expected more out of them than what they had.
Yeah, I think the offensive line really cost. Kansas City. I mean, Mahomes was under fire the whole game, man.
I think I saw where he ran for almost 500 yards, but scrambling. Crazy.
There was a couple of things that kind of just seemed to put Kansas City off kilter, and so it's just hard to understand why a game like that goes like that. But Right. Anyway, well, it's good to see you guys. I hope everybody is staying warm in Milwaukee. I know I was just down in Florida where it was beautiful. It was 70 degrees and 75, and then I came back to New York and it's in the 20s or less. And
we'll take that.
You would take 20. That sounds good to you right now, doesn't it?
Certainly.
So, well, we do have a special guest today that we're going to bring on, and I'm excited about this guest because of the book that I'm a part of and writing right now. And of course, Dave Clark's a part of that book and really the inspiration behind the book, pulling each other along. And this is one of our chapters. So people that are listening in are going to get a little highlight of some of the people that we found that were highlighting their pulling each other along story. And so without further ado, I'm going to just pop this up here. There's a picture for those that can see it on Facebook or live social media. We have Tom and Laura coming on the show. She has a book out called My Name Is Not Jane Doe. And so without further ado, I am going to pull this lovely couple in. Tom, Laura, how are you doing tonight?
We're doing great. Staying as warm as we can in West Springfield, Massachusetts. It's a warm 20 degrees out here.
Nice and toasty in here.
Very good. So, you've got a lot of background story, Tom. I want to kind of get right into Tom and Laura's story, and maybe hopefully we ask some different questions that you don't normally get. But give us a little background. How did you guys meet? What's the background of why you've met? Some history here between Tom and Laura.
Okay. Yeah, that's easy. In 2000. Laura's caregiver posted something online because Laura's quadriplegic. She's legally blind, traumatic brain injury, short-term memory loss. a lot of challenges. She has caregivers around the clock, and she needed another caregiver. And I was just at a point in my life where I was looking to do a change. And what got me was Laura was a poet, and I always liked lyrics for rock music and things like that. So I was interested in meeting her, and that's what we did. One thing led to another. I started working a few shifts for her, and then it kind of just grew, and we've been together for 21 years, just about every day. Help her. She's my best friend, my soulmate, and every day's great. It's an adventure.
So when you say that you have been with her every day, and why is that? What's a little background of Laura's story?
Well, Laura needs total care. Being quadriplegic, legally blind, she physically cannot do anything. Anything that an ambulatory person does during their day, Laura cannot do. So
Tom of my hands and my eyes. And I have a voice, thank goodness.
Right. So he's your hands and your eyes. Hopefully he's good eyes and good hands.
Very good hands.
Very nice. So give us some more background, Tom. I know you're a bit of an athlete. I put you down here, marathon runner, and I know that's something that you're also proud of. How many marathons have you run?
Run 54 marathons and 54 ultra marathons. I don't really promote that too much. You say that to a non-runner, and they look at you like you're kind of strange. So especially I found out in workplaces, you don't really talk about running too much. But yeah, that's what I've done. Completed 54 marathons, 54 ultra marathons,
and now what's the distance on those ultra marathons?
The longest one, they were usually like 50-mile races, but then they have races where you run by time, like on a track, 12-hour races. I ran 70 miles one day.
And he's still doing a marathon with me. Every day here is a marathon.
Helping Laura's long but very rewarding days.
So before I get into my first big question, Laura, what inspires you to write your poetry, and how does that come about? How do you make that happen?
Oh, it's so easy. It's all God. I have a strong faith, and God is with me all the time. And I write a lot about Him. I write a lot about nature.
Okay.
She writes on just about any topic, and she's not afraid to write about, her own physical loss. The fact that she hasn't taken a step in 32 years. Her eyesight she's legally blind. She's very open about that, not in the way that she's seeking a pity party. She will tell people straight out, I'm not a pity party. I don't want to bring anyone else down, but she's open. And we've done a lot of motivational speaking, especially in prisons and group homes. And I think that's one of her biggest accomplishments, something she's really proud of.
Yes. Speaking in the prisons is very enlightening.
So why choose the prisons?
Well, 32 years ago in Boston on her 26th birthday, this was before I met Laura, she went to Boston just for the day, just to sightsee, have a day by herself on her birthday, go into shops and things like that. At the end of the day, walking back to the bus station, she had a white leather purse over her shoulder, birthday gift, and she was a little bit naive. She didn't realize she was a soft target, being by herself, female, and showing that she was carrying some money. and 2 heroin addicts spotted her. They followed her and they kidnapped her. They threw her in their car. They took off. They robbed her. At the time, she was a college student. She had all of $10 in her
$10.
purse, and they took her money, her ID, and they sexually assaulted her. And then they beat her with a baseball bat. That's the reason for her physical condition. All the blows were to her head. They fractured her skull. It's a wild story. People hear her story and they say, "I've never heard a story like that before," but believe me, it's true.
It's true.
And why do we speak in prisons? About 7 years ago, we're watching the news, and all we heard on the news was about the heroin epidemic. And Laura looked at me and she said, "I want to help those people." And ironically, she wanted to help the people who are just like her assailants. And so she was excited about that. I said, "Okay, where are we going to find heroin addicts to talk to?" And I'm thinking, and probably in prisons. I contacted a local prison, and they set up our first presentation. And Laura was all excited about that. But Dave, this is probably something like what happened to you, where where you had that fear the day you had the field trip to the fire station. How am I going to get there? All of a sudden, Laura looked at me and she had this fear. My short-term memory loss. It's hard for me to do a presentation by myself. And her caregivers also said, "Laura, these men in prison are tough. You're a woman, you're in a wheelchair, they won't respect you."
They won't listen to you.
And now all of a sudden, Laura had that same fear that you had, Dave, like you had when you were going on that field trip. I said to Laura, "Laura, if we do this right, if we do it professionally, with confidence, I'll be your safety net. I'll help guide you through your story. And after that, whatever happens, happens. But as long as you know you did a good job, and I know we did a good job."
That's all that matters.
So we gave the presentation. There were about 70 inmates. It happened, it was, ironically, it was on her birthday. It was 25 years from the day of her accident. And we gave the presentation. And then at the end, the strangest thing happened to Laura. All 70 inmates stood up, gave her a standing ovation, and then they brought out a cupcake. Being in a prison, it had to be an unlit candle.
Right.
And they knew it was her birthday, and they all sang happy birthday to her.
That was the most wonderful day.
And she was emotionally so high from this. It was like something never happened to her.
Yeah.
A feeling that she never got, and she couldn't wait to do it again. So since that day, 7 years ago, we've done about 200 prison presentations, spoken to about 5,000 inmates. And what they see in Laura is they see someone who's been broken, mentally, physically, completely broken, as bad as anyone could be. And they're also broken because of their addictions, things that may have happened to them in their home life. But they see Laura in her wheelchair with peace written all over her face, completely calm. And that's what they don't have. But they realize if she could be peaceful in her life, they could be too. And 99% of them come up to Laura after a presentation and say, "You gave me hope. You gave me hope that I never thought I could get. If you can do what you did." And they say to her, "There's a lot of warriors in this room right now, all these inmates, a lot of warriors, but you're the biggest warrior here."
Yeah.
And
that made me feel really good. And when I say hope is how I get through my days. hope. If I didn't have hope, I'd have nothing. And I have a lot of hope because of God. I feel Him all the time.
Because the day of that assault, the two assailants put Laura in their vehicle after they assaulted her. She was unconscious. They drove through the streets of Boston, and at 3:30 in the morning, they left her on a doorstep on Harrison Avenue, a section that isn't a very good section in Boston. They took off. They were never caught. And Laura, by all logical reasoning, should have died that night. She was unconscious, skull fractured, and strangely enough, all of a sudden, a police officer came around the corner, spotted her, called paramedics, and they rushed her to New England Medical Center, where, without an ID, which was stolen, being unconscious, Laura was a Jane Doe for 5 weeks in that hospital. That's the title of the book. She was on a breathing tube, a feeding tube for 5 weeks, and that's all they could do for her, and just wait. And that's why Laura's very spiritual about this, because by all indications, she should have died that night. She shouldn't be alive. And she feels God directed.
I'm so grateful for my life. I love my life. I love my home. I live with my parents and Tom, and I'm just so happy and content.
Yeah, with everything that's happened to Laura, she's not bitter at all. In fact, although the assailants were never caught, she forgave them in the sense that she quickly forgot about them, put them in the rear view mirror, and said, I want to get on with my life. If I keep thinking about them, they're just going to drag me down. So I'm going to move forward. And in her condition, physically, she didn't know what she could do with her life. And then she remembered her love of poetry.
Right.
And so she started dictating to her caregivers, and one poem after another got put in her thought book and then on her computer. She saved them. And since 1992, she's written about 6,000 poems. At first, writing poetry was a form of therapy,
right,
to forget about her quadriplegia.
And it worked really well. I'd write, and I'd get so consumed with the poems I was writing that that's all I thought about, was making better poems and more and better poems.
It went from a form of therapy to an obsession, and she started driving her caregivers crazy, because Laura has a work ethic second to none, and she could write from 7 in the morning to 11 at night. Her caregivers had to write down what Laura dictated to them. And I know, since I've helped her with a lot of poems, I think I'm getting arthritic fingers now from helping her so much, but that's fine. It's great. Helping someone else is the best thing a person could do. So it's very rewarding. We feed off of each other. There's a good ebb and flow.
Very good.
And I never think of her quadriplegia. You look into someone's eyes and you see the person. You don't look at their legs. You don't, it's the fact she's in a wheelchair. That's just a normal part of our day. We don't even think about it. That's our normal.
Right.
You hear about with the COVID and things like that going on, in the country looking for a new normal. Well, Laura's situation, that's what's normal for us. That's every day. And I guess I ran all those marathons and ultras to build up the endurance and to take care of Laura. And it's great. We just enjoy each day.
Absolutely. And he does wonders. He's a wonderful man. And I love him.
I'm gonna ask you a quick question. I'm trying to think of which person I should ask this to, but I think I'm gonna ask Tom. And you might have already answered this question, but I'd like one specific answer to what has pulled you along in your life.
what's pulled me along in my life, I would say Laura opened my eyes to God. The fact that I could see how she's somewhat of a miracle, how her life has been weaved by him, kind of like a masterpiece. And so Laura feels God's presence so much. I can get that feeling being with her. And like we said, our days are long. There's no getting around that, from helping Laura in the morning all through the day into the night. God gives me the strength to do this.
Yeah, he's my 24-hour angel.
So, Laura, is it safe to say that Tom is a big source of what's pulled you along in this life?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, he is. I don't know what I do. He makes me so happy.
So you might not be prepared for this, but is there a poem that she loves or knows that can be recited for us and for the radio crowd that we have at 104.1 River West Radio in Milwaukee?
We'll see if this will come back to her memory.
Yeah.
It's a poem called "Bite of the Apple." You got that?
Bite of the apple. I'll always believe in you. Each whisper of wave, each flower petal, each wing of bee and bird. I'll always believe in you. Eyes wide, filled with innocence, until your eyes become hard as sidewalks. When you take a bite of the apple, when you tell your first lie, when you become human.
Wow, that's pretty special. I think you've captured.
Laura,
I've got a question I'd like to direct to Laura. Laura, I know my personal situation. I had polio when I was 10 months old. So I didn't have to do what you did, which is adjust the way you do things in life. I hadn't learned how to walk yet. So it was pretty easy for me growing up. It was my normal with crutches and braces. For you, you had an adjustment to make after that brutal attack. And I know from my own story, I had to learn my own strengths, what I could do, and face up to the fact of what I couldn't do. And, there is a word can't. My gym teacher in 3rd grade instilled that in me. There is a word can't. You hear people say, don't ever say can't, because there isn't such a word. There is. But there isn't a can't until you try to do something and then find out maybe you're not that good at doing that. So my question to you is, after this attack and before Tom came into your life, you had to have some kind of inner strength to deal with to deal what you went through and then come out the other side. Before Tom came into your life, what inspired you to move forward? A lot of people give up, okay? A lot of people give up when they're faced with hardships and transitions and adjustments. They just plain give up. You did not. Why didn't you? And what pulled you along at that point?
Well, I didn't give up because I was home. I loved being home. I wasn't in a nursing home or anywhere else. And my parents, Wayne and Carol, they're my angels. They brought me in, and I've been living at home for quite a while.
Yeah, like after her accident, she had told me, I said, how did you feel? That transition of not being ambulatory. And she said the most important thing for her, she'd spent 3.5 years in rehab facilities, but the most important thing was coming home. And as long as she was home with her parents, it was in 1992, she came home. That was like Christmas for her.
Every day.
And her parents give her unconditional love. They're still alive. They're still with her. They still give Laura all that love every day, and
Mhm.
and that's what it is. One of the most powerful forces
Yeah.
there is in the world is love.
I'm surrounded in it. I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have all the love that surrounds me. That's why I'm so strong, and that's why I can. When I first came home, I was obsessed with the thought of walking. I really was. I said, if I can't walk, I'm not going to be happy. But then I had another feeling that, and I remembered my poetry. So I started pouring my heart out like in a diary, and that helped a lot.
That's great. So, Tom,
Yeah.
you know, I want to ask you a question because it seems like we've been connected for a long time, and now more connected because of Todd Sivan and the Pulling Each Other Along book, and that we're writing. But what's your earliest memories of kind of finding out about this guy named Dave Clark, and I guess myself connected to Dave?
Well, I'm a huge sports fan. I like all sports. And when I heard about Dave Clark playing professional baseball with his physical situation, that just blew me away. That he has a huge heart and a never give up attitude. Athletes are special, and then there are special athletes, and that's what Dave is. We Laura and I both look up to him. Laura can relate in her way with her physical challenges, but the fact that Dave could play baseball on crutches, do what he had to do, never gave up, it was just amazing.
He's extraordinary and amazing.
I tell people that I know, I tell them about Dave all the time. I show them clips, videos. I said, you have to see this guy. And he gets our total respect. I guess that sums it up. Total respect.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
very true.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm flabbergasted because my story doesn't come close to touching what I just heard, and I can't write poetry, so so Laura's got one on me there, that's for sure.
She can't swing a baseball bat or throw a knuckleball. So,
well, there were nights when I couldn't throw the knuckleball either.
There he is.
My poetry is what saved me, and then through my poetry, I found God, and God's with me every day, and I write poems every day.
And the thing is, Laura and I, we don't consider ourselves as anything special. We go places when we go to speak at different events. People see us once we're there, once we're all put together, Laura's all dressed up and everything, but they don't see the 7 o'clock in the morning till the 1 o'clock in the afternoon, all the transfers Laura has to do, showering, getting dressed. I guess what you would call the blue collar part of the day.
We've got a time commitment here. We got about 30 seconds, but you can stay on because we'll still be live on Facebook and social media. But this has been the River West Radio Show with hosts Doug Cornfield, Dave Clark, Dave Geis, and I know it's chilly in Milwaukee. We hope this story warmed your heart. An amazing story of some amazing people. Look up for their book and find out some more about Tom and Laura. It's just an amazing story, and if you can find us on Facebook, we're good to go. I went too long on that, so we're already over time. So let's just take a quick musical break here, and we'll come back in just a moment.
Okay, great. Just a moment. on.
Well, this has been, we just finished up the live radio portion of the 104.1 River West Radio. We've got Dave Clark, Dave Geis, Dave. No, we don't have our other Dave on today, but we have Tom and Laura sharing their pretty touching story. And I must, you made the radio show really easy on us. All we had to do is sit back and listen. So that was pretty cool. And
that's a powerful story.
Very.
It really is. And I commend both of you for what you do. And it's just amazing story.
yeah.
We're just honored to. It was an honor for us to be connected with you guys and to be on the show.
Absolutely.
You know, this was really our pleasure. This is a thrill for us. You know, our day was just normal type of day, doing normal things. And when you messaged me, Doug, I had to really shift it in gear, get everything together. But this was truly an honor.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
I'm only laughing because we have some comments over on my right side on the screen here from listeners, and I want Tom and Laura to hear this one. Our former general manager with the Indianapolis Clowns, Mike Bowers, has just checked in, and he says, "Can we expect a poem from Dave on next week's show?" So I think I'm going to have to ask Laura to ghostwrite that poem.
There you go. The pressure's on.
We'll do that.
Yes. We'll do
Just give her a subject matter, and she'll have a poem for you.
Oh yeah.
Have a poem for me? Okay. All right.
Well, we need a poem for our show, the Pulling Each Other Along show and book. So there's the subject matter.
Okay, that's
There you go.
great. Perfect.
There it is.
We'd love to have a poem. Is there another poem that you can share? I mean, that was beautiful listening to you share that poem on the live radio show, and now we can let loose a little bit because we can not be as good as we were a few minutes ago.
Okay, well, we'll see if Laura has one. Like I said, her short-term memory loss makes it a little difficult, but do you have something, Laura?
Yes, you do. I have one, and it's entitled "My Son." My son, weeping in the church, her tears were fresh with pain, lowering the casket on the darkest day of rain. Every day she walked to place flowers on his grave, remembering his battle, her son, so young and brave. Peacefulness from heaven illuminates his eyes, wings of pure white feather drifting in the sky. He walked through people on the street, touching them with care. He saw his mother's face, aging with despair. He took her hand in his and whispered in her ear, "Feel my love surround you, and know I'm always here." The sound of walking steps, the whisper of a feather. Heaven is like love, a song of love forever.
Well, what blows me away is Laura's the one with the short-term memory loss. I can't remember 2 verses of a poem, and that poem was about 6. So I don't know if she really has short-term memory loss, or
Maybe not.
maybe it's getting better.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom and Laura, Dave here. We're getting quite a few listeners over here that want to know how we can give them more info on how to get Laura's book. So if you could tell the listeners how they can get your book.
Best way to get Laura's book is through her publisher's website, which is Civin, that's CIVIN Media, MEDIA, relations.com. So it's civinmediarelations.com.
You put that up there, Doug. That's good.
Yeah, and Todd and Civin Media Relations is a sponsor of the Pulling Each Other Along radio show. So, we're just glad that you're a part of the new book coming up to Pulling Each Other Along and sharing your story that way. So we hope to be able to get more and more and more people out and to know your story through that means as well. I have a question. question for you guys. So you've written all of these poems.
Yes.
Has any musician ever picked you up to take these poems and put them to music?
Yeah, actually, a musician who we met about a year ago, from Italy. His first name's Lorenzo. I think Budaccini. Not remembering his last name correctly, properly, but we've sent him some of Laura's poems, and he's put them to music, and it's great to see a poem take that extra step into the transformation from just being a poem to being a song. So
It's quite amazing.
Wow,
That's really cool.
that's really cool. Is there any other questions coming? If anybody has a question, we had to give the info.
Shout out, Doug, to Barbara Zetti. She's listening, and glad to hear everybody. And then I'm getting a lot of comments, but it just says Facebook user again. So I don't know where some of them are coming from, but glad everybody is tuning in to hear this amazing story that I'm hearing it for the first time tonight. So, and just so Tom and Laura are aware that Dave, and I had that shut off, Doug, that time, that ringer's supposed to be off. Anyway, Tom and Laura, the fella on the lower right-hand side of the screen, Dave Geis, he and I were teammates. He was a player under me. We were teammates. He was a co-owner of the Indianapolis Clowns with me. He actually lives in Green Bay, and he's a Packer fan. But I wanted to introduce you to him as well, because I'm sure you've been sitting there looking at his ugly face and saying, who is that guy down there?
Yeah, right. But I do want to say that that guy's story is truly inspirational, and you just keep on doing what you guys do. It's just amazing. You know, every time, when I met Dave back in 1983, in hearing his story and watching it unfold to a part, it's just so much that you take in. And since we've been doing this show, it seems like every week it just gets more and more and more, and each story is just better and better. And yours is truly one to hear. So just keep doing what you're doing, and with the books and the poetry and the speaking engagement, keep doing it. It's just amazing. It really is.
yeah, when I first met Laura, the very first night I met her, and we came over her house and we were talking, and Laura was a little bit, feeling sensitive about her physical situation. And she looked at me at the end of the night and she said, Tom, I'm a lot of work. And all I did the whole night was just look at her from the neck up, looking at her eyes. And I said, Laura, you're not a lot of work. You're a work of art. And certain people along the way helped Laura with her confidence level, because she was very unsure of herself when I first met her. And I said, listen, I'm going to bring you to hear a speaker. His name is Dick Hoyt, the father of the father and son racing team, Dick and Rick Hoyt. Rick was in a wheelchair as well. And we heard Dick speak, and I knew Dick from road racing. I'd run in races with them. And he spoke with us afterwards, and he told Laura, you can do anything that you really want to do if you put your mind to it. Don't let anything hold you back. And that gave Laura her first step of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I purchased a book that was co-written with Rick Hoyt and Todd Sivan. That's how we met Todd. And when I asked Todd, I said, you know, you've published books before. Could you publish one of Laura, a book for Laura? Because that was Laura's main goal: get her poetry out to the world, just for others to enjoy it. And when he did that, that opened a huge door in her life, and well, it that really escalated things. And it was one book after another, and the book you had was her fourth book. She's actually published her fifth and soon to be released her sixth book, and now she's working on her seventh. She's got this goal this year to see if she can publish 4 books. So she's going nonstop, and
the reason I'm able to do that so easily is I have such a vast inventory of poems that I wrote, that I've been writing, you know.
Yeah, she's reaping the fruits of her
yes,
of her work. You know,
definitely.
she has over 6,000 poems written. So we have a lot of fun selecting the poems. And,
Yeah, we do.
Hey, Tom and Laura, how many did you write today?
we're working on one today. We haven't completed a poem today, but
Does it have a title?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
But it had to do with the problem out there when we heard about the COVID and the opioid use escalating because of the COVID. You know, she has a poem in mind as far as addiction goes out there.
I do. And once I get it, I'll definitely send it to you.
Well, thank you.
But we know tomorrow the poem's going to be about pulling each other along.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
got some work to do.
We've got that here.
Hey,
And
Doug, I have a
Can't wait
comment.
for the books tomorrow.
Go ahead,
Doug,
Dave.
I'd like to make a comment to something that Laura or Tom alluded to. Laura saying to him that one of the first nights they met, he said she looked at him and said, "I'm a lot of work, you know." You know, I told the same thing to my wife when I met her. I said, I'm a lot of work, you know. And the thing is, she still tells me I'm a hell of a lot of work. So,
Trust me, I can relate to that. Dave Geis probably remembers as well.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I want to pull Kurt into this. What did you think about this story, Kurt?
I'm very impressed. You know, quite a life experience and quite a testimony to the human condition. I'm curious if there's anything in the month or months ahead. Does 2021 represent anything more than the book writing and poem writing and stuff like that? Is there any events coming up for you guys this year? Any milestones, anything like that?
We're anxious to get back in the prisons to speak,
Definitely.
but since March of last year, you know, due to the COVID, we aren't able to go into the prisons, and we feel like a hole in our heart that as a whole, as a group, Laura has such a fond attachment to the inmates. After seeing the impression we leave with them, we feel like we have work that was partly accomplished, but there's more work to be done in the correctional facilities. So we really miss that. So that's kind of like a hole in our heart right now.
After I would tell my story to them and they would talk to me, I would leave high, like I was high on something. It was emotions. It was beautiful.
Some days it would get very touching. One inmate came up to us afterwards, and he said they had him in the hole that week. He'd done something wrong, and he was in isolation. And that morning, a correctional officer came by and he said, you're going to have to listen to this woman speak. She's going to share her story. Well, we didn't know what he had planned for that day was suicide. But he came, he listened to Laura's story, and then he came up to us afterwards in tears. After her story, after most of the inmates left the room, he said, I was going to kill myself today because my life is just trash right now. It's just trash. I'm an addict and I have no future. And I was going to kill myself. After listening to your story, I was going to go back to my cell and kill myself. But he said, when I saw the courage that you had and everything that you've gone through and the fact that you didn't give up, he says, there's no way that I could give up. And he says, there's a Bible study class tonight. I'm going to join that. I'm going to turn my life around. And when something like that happens, that's huge. And Laura realizes her importance, what she's meant to do in this life, and she's doing it. So that, like she said, she was emotionally high after that. And I don't think you needed the wheelchair that day. I think you had wings to soar.
I did. I flew home.
So Tom and Laura, we didn't get to all our questions. I have a couple of questions we're trying to ask each one of our guests from week after week to have some little consistencies. But what is your favorite sport?
Favorite sport? Do you have a favorite sport, Laura?
Does Laura have a favorite sport?
I like diving.
All right.
That's kind of a sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before, when Laura was ambulatory, she loved to swim and dive.
Yeah.
And I, with me, I guess it would have to be long distance running.
Very good. Well, that you're I don't want to say you're insane because I was a runner myself, but I didn't go that far.
I've heard that a lot before.
No, I have. We used to call ourselves jarheads, not the military type of jarheads, but you had to unscrew the lid off your head, take out your brain, go run, and then you got to put your brain back in when you came back to Earth after your long runs. And
you never put yours back in, did you?
I don't think I did, Dave. That's definitely a problem for me, I guess. So running for you, Tom, and batting and maybe playing baseball and swimming for Laura. And so because of Dave's love for donuts, Dave Clark this is, and you might not have known Dave had a love for donuts.
Dave likes them too, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so another Dave. What are your favorite donuts?
Go ahead. You go first, Laura.
Chocolate.
Chocolate
donuts?
Yep.
All right, good choice. Chocolate what?
Chocolate through and through.
Chocolate through and through. What about you, Tom? Or does the running keep you from donuts?
No. It gives me a reason to not feel guilty eating donuts. I like donuts. I like apple fritters a lot. But as far as donuts, blueberry donuts.
Blueberry.
If you get a good blueberry.
Oh, there's a Bennett's there.
Those are good.
Yeah. No, we So Dave, I don't know if you looked at my children's book, and I think you guys have the children's book. I know you have it. And one of the pages I have Dave holding a donut away from his dog. And the reason I pictured it like that is he would never let his dog get his donut. He loved his dog, but not that much because Dave loves donuts so much. But so let's
trying to keep his dog healthy.
What was that?
He was just trying to keep his dog healthy, keep it away from sugar.
That's what
he was doing a good thing.
So either one of you can answer this next question or both, and then we'll probably wrap it up unless one of the other guys has some thoughts or questions. But if you didn't go down the path that you went, and part of it you didn't necessarily choose this path, what do you think an alternative road might have been?
I probably would have been a medical assistant.
Medical assistant.
That's what I was going. That's what I was going to college for.
Okay.
I couldn't finish because of what happened.
Gotcha. Tom, what about you?
That's a tough one. I really don't know. I probably would have continued doing a lot more running. The running kind of slowed down after I met Laura because our days were full. But it's hard to say. I put it this way: I don't really want to think of what could have happened because things have turned out so well this way. We're both very content, and we love each day and whatever it brings. We don't plan things, but whatever it brings is fine.
Right. Any more questions from my limited peanut gallery here? Dave and Dave?
Wait a minute, you calling me a peanut gallery here?
Pretty much.
I just want to make a comment, no question, a comment that I'm going to go back to what we started the show with, really, with Laura saying hope. And I think hope is huge for any person to have. If you don't have hope, what have you got? So hope comes in many forms. It's in many different shapes, but I think you hit the nail on the head. You're giving, when you go out and speak at the prisons, you're giving these prisoners a different perspective that they may never have thought about before. And it ends up that you're giving them hope that there is something they can do in the future with their life, no matter how low the life has gotten now. So again, thank you for sharing your story tonight with us. It's been powerful.
Right. Definitely. Thank you guys for being on. Dave Geis, any last?
No, there's no way I can follow that other than just thank you again and keep doing what you're doing.
Yep.
Okay, it's
Thank you for having us.
it was an honor to be on with you guys, and also a great honor to be involved with the book, pulling each other along. We'll look forward to the day that comes out, probably in a few months. But that really we were so honored when we got a message from Todd about that book and asking us if we wanted to get involved, and that's going to be super. People out there are really going to be surprised with it.
Yeah, we're trying literally to pull it all together as far as getting all the chapters done so we can get them fully edited by the publisher and package it and get the cover finished and just all the little details that have to go down to the wire here. So we're just glad you're a part of that. And anyway, this has been a fun show. It's been very rewarding just to kind of meet you guys Zoom to Zoom or face to face, or however we, in this case, restream to restream. And it's been a blessing to hear your story, and we look forward to that more in the near future. So for everybody else, this is Doug Cornfield. I'm here with Dave Clark, Dave Geis, now Kurt Roskoff. Is that how you pronounce your last name? Did I get it right?
You got it.
And yep. Tom, I didn't even try to pronounce your last name.
Most people don't. It's Greek, and that scares people to try and pronounce it. It's not really that hard. It's Demolakis.
Demolakis. There you go. And Laura, you pronounce your last name, is it Chagnon? Did I get that right?
Right on the button.
All righty. So it's been a pleasure to have you all. And we look forward to 6:30 again next Thursday evening on the Central Time and 7:30 East Coast time. This is the Pulling Each Other Along the show, and we'll